Thanks for inviting me here. I'm always excited to talk about Python, and Shiny 2 was a kind of a recent hobby that happened. A lot of hobbies kind of coming together tonight. So I've been into computer programming most of my life, one language or another. And I got into Python like 2017, 2018. And it was sort of like, I'd come from C++ before then, and it was, I don't know how to really describe it other. It was like, I found the joy of programming again. I was like, this is it. I could
Angels were singing.
I could be lazy. I could do all the things that I wasn't supposed to do, and and so it was, and I was able to like put stuff together really fast, and I didn't have to like create the framework of the house before I could open a door, so it was great language, a lot of fun to work with, made it really easy to move data around between different databases and platforms and stuff. Do processing in between it, and then originally I was just kind of using Python to post data so that I could visualize it with another tool. But eventually, I'd heard about this Shiny framework that has traditionally been like an R framework since, I don't know, 2014 or something, and the company that created it, Posit, they started working on a Python framework, and for a couple of years it was in like a previous, wasn't quite production release yet, it was still 0. something. And finally last year in about July, I think, they released their big 1.0. And so I wanted to start playing around with it, seeing what I could do, and I hadn't really, I did mess with it a little bit in R, but not too much. And once it came to Python, suddenly I decided it was cool, and I wanted to play around with it more. And so so I was looking for something to kind of play around with. Meanwhile, last September, I picked up classical guitar on a whim. Wasn't quite. I've always loved the sound of it. I listen to classical guitar a lot when I'm working. And particularly, I really like Spanish guitar. And you hear some of the things that that those guitarists can play, and I'm like, I wish I could make that sound. And so I had a guitar that was collecting dust, and so I found a guitar teacher, started taking lessons, and early on in my lessons, I was starting to keep records of things that I was struggling with in a book. And I was looking at this thing week after week, and I'm like, I can do better than this. like why a book? Because like I'd go to see my teacher, and he's like, okay, how'd things go this past week? Any problems? And I'm shuffling through my pages trying to figure out what to talk to him about. So then I was kind of thinking it'd be nice to just visualize some of this stuff. If I had a way to say like, here's roughly how much time I'm spending every day, here are the things I'm focusing on, and these like parts of these songs, these are the parts I'm having problems with. He had mentioned at one point that you can start to get a lot better once you record yourself and hear what you sound like, and you'll start to pick up on a lot of things that you don't when you're just practicing. And so I made it a point to be like, well, okay, why not have, if I wanted to put this into some kind of dashboard, why not also have it be something where I can decide I want to record myself in this song for this session and then look back at it later. So this kind of became almost like a diary of, daily practice on the guitar from when I started. And at this point, I've been going at it for just a little over a year. I started last September. And so now I have a full set of data, which is fun. The design here, it looks a lot like a GitHub commit graph or GitLab, but and that was the idea. But yeah, so it also kind of looks like a fretboard where you've got for each of the little strings, you've got the days of the week and then weeks of the year. So it's long enough. And then I attach the head of the actual guitar I play at the end.
Is that a picture of it?
Yes.
Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah. So all of the visuals are built in Plotly. I chose Plotly because of its interactivity. It has, for all of the different things you do in Plotly, you have the ability to run callbacks. And that allows you to have server logic run when the user clicks on something on your visual, making it like you can click on something and it's like, oh, let me show you a, oh my gosh, I can't think of it.
Pop-up or something?
Yeah, motive. Anyway,
Modal.
modal. Thank you. It'll pop up with a modal. It'll be like, here's a pop-up for that thing you just clicked and stuff like that. So and it has the ability to have hover over effects also. So there's other libraries I could have used. Matplotlib doesn't come with callbacks. There's one called Plot9, which mirrors an R library, which is awesome, called ggplot2. I really like it for the it's just so easy to work with, like to understand how to put a chart together without getting so bogged down. Yeah, and but unfortunately, it doesn't have callbacks. And so, if I were to use that, it would have been a lot more picture-based, and you wouldn't really be able to do a whole lot with it. So I picked Plotly because it's interactive. It has a whole. It's actually a JavaScript library, and they built Python and R bindings behind it. So that's how we're able to turn that into interactive dashboards. So all of the visuals you'll see here are from Plotly as the graphics library, as the visual library, sitting on top of Shiny for Python, which is the web framework. Okay, so I kind of got to a point where, yeah, I wanted to start logging all this stuff together. So I sat down and started thinking about, what are some views I might want to see, and this was the first one I came up with, and I just kind of scratched it out on paper. I think I even have like a picture of, yeah, there we go. I was like something like this, where it shows what I'm doing every day, and then sort of like what the last week looked like, and generally when I go through a visual project, I'll start with something like this, where I'll just scratch out a couple of different visuals using colored pencil to get some idea of like what I want it to look like in the end, and then go about figuring out ways to make that work. So this is the kind of the main page of it all. You can see here that, again, this top one is kind of the feature chart. It shows all of the practice session, all the practice data from the past year. There is a filter here where you can actually select down to specific songs. So for example, if I wanted to focus on how much time did I spend on just Claire de Lune, you can see only those practice sessions. And so you can see I was working hard in the beginning, trying to get it, and then it kind of tapered off once I got the hang of it, and it started becoming more like maintenance. Currently, one that I'm working on right now is Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. I started and I haven't stopped yet. And that's pretty much all I'm writing. Asturias is another one I had picked up for a little while and left, going through a period of rage. And it was definitely a cathartic song to play. Yeah, and then here's a tango called Malonga de Angel, and so that was kind of the you can just sort of like visualize all that stuff coming together, and then you put it all together, and you have all these things. So it's anyway, heat maps. So the other parts of this session tab, this first tab here, are kind of a review of what's happened in the past week. And the goal here was to be able to communicate with my guitar teacher, progress that I'd made, maybe some things that I was having some problems with, and to remind myself that once I get, I've forgotten this song, once I get in to talk to him, I can be like, all right, here's where I'm stuck. I need help trying to speed this section up. My fingers aren't working, or whatever it may be. And
Are you doing 90 minutes a day?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yep. Sometimes up to 95 minutes. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I want it.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm getting ahead of you here.
Please.
The moment that I saw all the theme, is the music playable from this dashboard?
As in, can you hear recordings? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'll hit that. Yes, so that's a part of the heat map chart. So again, you've got basic hover overs where you can see, over the last week, I've spent 419 minutes on Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. I'm trying to get it ready for the holidays. And then this section over here is looking back at the past 365 days, at all the different songs that I may have played, and how they're going. This is an interesting one that I actually just realized yesterday. I started playing before I started playing the arrangement that I'm working on right now for Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. I found a simplified arrangement that I started playing first. I played it for 2 days before I was like, this isn't very fun. And I found another arrangement, and I haven't yet split this out to say author and arranger. Right now it's just the composer. So this is a specific bar in here that has a split where you can see the very beginning of that first. I spent less than 2 hours on that one arrangement before I found the one that I liked a lot more that I've worked on for over a day. So I will split this out to show composer, arranger, unique combinations, and that will then have this one go up in the list.
Can I have a stupid question? Do you have also Sedalic? Possibly the rendering Sedalic within your interface?
Sedalic.
Oh, just because of the name of the author.
Cyrillic.
Cyrillic. Azbuka.
Oh, I see. It's UTF-8. So if
Yes.
that includes it, it would be in there. Anytime that there's umlauts or like backticks or other weird characters, that I see in a title or a name, I'll try to have those reflected. So you can see Lagrima. It's got Lagrima has got the emphasis on the A.
Thank you.
My apologies.
From a selfish music perspective, how does this dashboard shape the conversations with your teacher, and how does it enhance the goal of your playing?
I don't actually know if he looks at this so much as it is for me to gather my thoughts before I talk to him. So I can kind of have a look at it, put everything together, and be like, all right, here are the challenges. For the most part, I've also realized that I'm not sure I need it to know here are the areas I'm having problems, because I've been working on it for that whole time, and I'm probably able to speak the problems that I'm having. Yeah, it's kind of nice to look back at as a documented journal of a journey.
How does your data get in here?
Right. So you're looking at the dashboard, which is the visual front end or the visual back end, but there's a data entry front end aspect to it. So I built another Shiny app that allows you to, it just visualizes in tabular format data from, it was like a free tier database tool called Supabase. And I got the free tier on it, and then hooked this up to that. And so set up a schema to pull all the data together. I can go and show you that. Before I do though, I'll just finish up this one tab. Yeah, so there's a data entry app that writes the data to the database, and this pulls it up every on load every time it's loaded.
Cool.
All right, so one of the things to note about this is on these charts, you can click on one of these things and you will get a modal that gives you more information with the notes on any specific day. I can go all the way back to, where I first started and what things I was working on, and, where I was at with whatever the thing was. Also, if I happen to have a video that I had recorded, then in that day I would have recorded it, posted it to YouTube, unlisted links, and the data entry app has the ability for each practice session that I log. I can say for this song, for this practice session, here's a URL for a video that I recorded. And it'll render that here in an iframe. So in this case, 2 different songs that same day I had put recordings on, and so you can click on either one. And so if I try, don't know if the internet's going to be helpful on that or not. Okay.
So great here.
No problem. Anyway, that'll play right there in the modal, and then you can X out to leave it, to go back to the main page. So there's a tab across the top, or like a nav bar across the top, and you have different tabs for each of the sections. This is actually a very common, Shiny, like bootstrappy way of building a dashboard, where they kind of give you this nav bar on the top. You might have like a pop out sidebar that can go in and go out, and you'll have these tabs and like the underlines underneath. All of that stuff is kind of built in with Bootstrap. One of the things I wanted to try to do with Shiny was find a way to make it not look like Shiny. Coming from Tableau, where you can do anything in the world really quickly, to like make something look like it, they couldn't tell what tool it came from. Turns out that's really hard with Shiny. Because with a Bootstrap web page, there's already a ton of CSS that's written for your dashboard, and trying to modify and override some of that stuff, it's like editing somebody else's web page. So that would be, I guess, one kind of drawback of a Bootstrap type app, is that there's a lot of overhead that comes with it, that if you want to be able to customize the look and feel of it, you can only go so far before you really have to dig in and start overriding like low-level Bootstrap stuff.
When you say Bootstrap, just for the edification of others, you mean a particular CSS framework, Bootstrap?
Yes, absolutely. Bootstrap CSS or CSS Min or something, something like that. So I hadn't really messed with Bootstrap before then. Then when I started playing with these, I started learning more about it. And when I go in a developer tab and start looking at elements on the page, I'm like, every cascading style sheet element here is related to BS something. And I'm like, okay, so Bootstrap is everywhere.
It is everywhere.
So, for better or for worse, it helps with a lot of things. Yep.
Back a little bit to when you were saying every time this page loads, it fetches the most recent.
Yep.
So it looks like a lot of data in that fretboard. I didn't see when you first loaded it. Is it generally pretty snappy when it pulls up?
I think so. Let me try loading it again. We'll find out. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, it might be cached now. But like, here's a new view.
Try incognito.
Okay, how do I do that?
3 dots on the right.
Incognito. Yeah.
Because it shouldn't catch that.
Yeah, it's
It's still pretty quick.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
So the username and password, I put together a couple of different sets of credentials on the database. One is sort of like the read-all credentials, so anyone can go in with the credentials which are cached with the app that's posted to Shiny, and they can access the data without necessarily knowing what the credentials are. The right credentials you have to provide on the data entry app. So I can go ahead and show that now, because we had a question about data entry, and it is a logical point to switch back to where's all the data come from. All right. So this is the data entry app, and I'm just going to go ahead and get it in here. All right. It's very simple compared to the dashboard. And actually, this shows you a Bootstrap app. This is very basic Bootstrap app. It's the same layout as you saw on the dashboard. I just didn't style anything. I didn't go in and try to override the backgrounds and do all that stuff with the coloring. It's just plain and simple. It shows you all of the tables in my schema, and then each table gives you a viewer of the table, and for any particular row on the table, you can click on it and you can update it if you'd like, or you can just click new to add a new row. And so I've got sessions table, songs, arrangements. Actually, it's easier to look at the schema itself, which is right here. Nope, not yet. Here we go. All right, so that's maybe a little bit small, but you can see the high level tables. So like, this is the practice table. I have a table for the guitars themselves. So like, I've got an area on the dashboard where if I play more than one guitar, I'm logging for each day which guitar I'm playing in a particular session. Is that all right?
Yeah.
A little better?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And so then on on a particular day, I can log, whichever session I did to a particular guitar. Allows me to track useless things like how much time I've spent on a particular guitar.
Even the strings you're using, I guess?
Yep, I'm also tracking the strings. That actually does have a use.
I just love how much how deep the nerd hole goes.
That one does have a good use. I started doing a lot of research about how long do strings last on guitars, and they're like, well, of course, it depends how much you're playing it, and what kinds of things you're playing. And so I'm like, okay, great. So let me create this algorithm that goes day by day. If I don't play it, it lasts a certain amount of time, and then if I do play it, it starts degrading faster, and then it like recalculates daily. So there's like a string health indicator for each of the guitars with the strings that are installed, and when I install them.
I noticed you say guitars. How many guitars are we talking about now? You got like
Just 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you're ready for when you have 16.
I mean, you never know. You never know. I hear stories. I think I'm fine with the 2 that I have. But it lets me look at, when was the last time I installed strings. And I did also track which strings I put on the guitar, because when it's time to reorder strings, I want to just click on an Amazon link and get them.
Does your Shiny input app deal with like foreign keys well, so you like appropriate drop downs, or do you have to remember the numbers of, this string set was ID 42?
Oh gosh, I couldn't tell you what that was. All of that's worked out in the code. Anyone here use SQL Alchemy? I used to do a lot of SQL Alchemy where I just did straight SQL and like pandas read to get stuff. For this dashboard, I started trying to use their ORM framework, object relational model. So you write out like a very descriptive view of here's what this table is going to look like when I get it from the database, and here's each of the field names and the field types, and it like has that as an object. And then your query is like, hey SQL Alchemy, get that object, and it goes in and it pulls all the stuff for you. I do think I think I did pull each of the tables individually, and I joined them in Python. So I probably joined them as pandas data frames.
Okay.
But what the IDs were, I don't know.
So the input forms, though, like, how much custom code do you have for the input forms versus how much does like the Shiny app and SQL Alchemy just like let you basically say like reuse my form logic but for this new table?
So if I can figure out how to zoom out here, I'm trying to.
Control
Command 0.
There we go.
Or reset.
All right. So the app itself, if you want to have something that's reusable, you have to build it to be reusable. So what you're looking at here was kind of an experiment so Shiny feels very structural in kind of the way it works. There are callbacks and things sent to the front, but it kind of looks like a big mess of objects, and I wanted to split a lot of that stuff up. So I experimented with a couple of different things using classes in Python to try to split certain objects apart and make it so that Shiny does have a concept of modules, which is really neat. They're like reusable components. You can build a template, and then you can be like, hey, run this thing 100 times, and it like just starts spilling, code out. Think of it like if you had like a gallery thing in Power Platform, each of those like items that has like its own set of stuff, and every time you hit plus, you get another one. It's similar to that kind of thing where like you're designing a template and you're saying instantiate a new one, a new one, a new one, and it uses that same code, but it sort of like prepends its own slug on top of the DOM's ID for the elements, so that they don't ever end up like you don't have the same ID for the same thing happen twice in your DOM. So that's some of the stuff that it does do behind the scenes for you. It'll be like, oh, you want to do this and sort of reinstantiate these objects again and again. I'll go ahead and like manage the DOM part of that for you. You just design the template. So I designed a template around, I know I want to get a table. I know I want to have a new button and an update button. And I know I want the functionality for being able to click on a table row to show the update button. And then after that, it was just, I'm going to insert the table and let the module run 6-7 times, one for each tab. And so in here, there was a lot of code around sort of a single template that I just reinstantiated once it was ready to go. Yeah, so this is basically a view of every table in the database through like a front-end data entry app. It'd be just like logging into Supabase to say, change this table, but it's got a little bit of a nicer front end. You can click on, yeah, so every time you hit new or update, you'll get a modal view of whatever that particular table is that you want to update.
So did you like write the HTML for that form, or is that form, like Shiny has ways to like build that out in just Python?
It's sort of half and half. So it helps to know HTML because when you design the Shiny UI, it kind of looks a little bit like HTML, but it's Python. So it's a bunch of nested Python objects that might be like UI.div, UI.h3, so there is some of that, but then there's also UI output widget, which is going to be like my chart, and then you load the chart in, or it could be UI input slider or something. You create a control, and it manages the HTML around the control, with all the Bootstrap stuff around it that styles it. You just have to list where you want it to go. So it's a little bit of both. Like it helps to know HTML because you are kind of generating what it will end up becoming HTML, but you're just really looking at the high level view of it. Like I want these objects on my page, and you can add some styles in if you want to at the end of like a div. You can be like add these classes or things like that, or you can just let it run the way you want it to. So it's a bunch of nested things. When I first looked at it, I was like, this is really weird because it all ends up turning into this one object called UI. And you open it up and it's like a function, and all of these things you keep indenting are like arguments of functions, and they are functions themselves. And so it looks really weird when you first start doing it. I didn't like it, but I liked HTML less. So kind of got used to it. Yeah, right. Turns out there's no real secret, wonderful way to create a website. You're going to have to slog through something. So, okay, so that's the data entry app. All of this information, every time you write a record, it goes right back into the Supabase using my write credentials. And then, and then the dashboard views it as soon as you load it up. So, okay. All right, so let me go through the rest of these tabs, and then we can stop and see if anyone wants to, just a couple different things we could look at if you want to, just kind of see where everyone's at. So this was a tab that, I wanted to try to get those across the screen at least. So this is a tab that has a couple of cards across the top. I wanted to look at something that was like cumulative since I started playing guitar. This first tab just looks at the last 365 days. This is something I'm hoping, over the years kind of gives me a record of like, here's the journey. And so it does things like how much is my average practice time when I practice, longest practice streak. It's gone up. And then the longest like single session that I would have had. And then this is, there was a TED Talk, I forget the name of the person, somebody here is going to know it, that talks about this 10,000 hours rule of becoming an expert. So I was like, well, I've got to have that. But at this rate, I'll probably not get there in my lifetime because it's really going slowly. 10,000 is a long way. I'm 1/50th of the way there right now.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I mean, you're doing great for playing advanced stuff in a year. Yeah, that's really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, well done.
And then the career length is just the distance of time since the first session I recorded in the dashboard. So this was a chart that I before I think I had the guitar fretboard, like, or maybe right at the same time, this was another one that I was like, I need to have this. And it had to do with sort of, as I was starting to learn songs, I was realizing there's like 4 different stages that I'm going through. Like there's the very beginning of, I just need to get off book. There's so many notes here or tablature that it's slowing me down to keep looking up, figure out what I'm playing next before I can keep going. And then so that's kind of one phase. And then after that, there's, all right, I know all the notes, I don't have to look at the book, but it's slow and I need to get it up to speed. And that usually is the longest phase for a lot of these songs. You can see a lot of these songs I haven't gotten out of that phase because I just haven't felt like it's been up to speed yet. So that's a lot of metronome work, working on specific sections, ticking it up 4 notches, and then going again and again and again. And then you finally get to a point where, all right, I've got it, where it's mechanically played at the correct tempo, but it's mechanical. And so then there's this phrasing aspect that my guitar teacher started working with me on of like, all right, this is where you have to do the touchy-feely stuff of trying to think about like what's the mood of the person who's supposed to be playing this, and what's really supposed to be happening in this song. Is this a part where somebody's flying away, or is this a part where somebody's stomping through the woods? So going through the phrasing, I'll actually bring the music back out and start putting notes down in a lot of the different sections to be like, this part I'm playing harder, this part lift up, this part get quieter, stuff like that.
So, quick question. So, this input is all manual?
Oh, this is actually, okay, great question. This is actually a cumulative, it's a compilation of all of the session data that I've put in. So once I start working on an arrangement, that arrangement has 4 date points on it. And one is the date at which I'm off book, one's the date at which I'm up to tempo, one's the date at which I'm ready to play, so that the phrasing would be complete, and then after that it would be maintenance. It's just, continues to go. And so once I hit those points, I'll go into in my data entry app, I'll go to that arrangement and say, this was the day that I think I'm off book. And it will track that when it when it puts all this stuff together to be like, okay, so this is how much, I'm sorry, you didn't even get to see the x-axis here, but this is duration. So it is able to add all of those sessions up to say, here's how many hours it took of when he was in the learning note stage of that song. So it's pulling the same data, just showing it differently.
So you're so advanced that I'm just curious that would you adapt this so it will start collecting data by using the sound once you start playing?
Oh, I see. No, that the data entry is 100% manual. Like once I'm done with my session, I'll look at my phone. So like I'll start a stopwatch and I'll like hit lap every time I go to the next song. And then I just look at the different things and I was like, okay, I played 4 different songs. I know I played them in this order. So that one was 15 minutes, that one was 35, that one was 20. And then I'll put in sessions for each of those at the end.
Okay. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was thinking, why don't you have some page that you would have just button that would give you the timestamp and
to like have the data entry be like start, stop. Yeah, yes. That's an interesting idea.
Like, not necessarily putting it right away to the database, just to have it as a notepad, the thing for the timestamps for the session.
Oh, you mean like write it down next to me? Or you're saying in a computer?
Yeah.
My only hesitation of doing that in a Shiny app is if I post it to Shiny Apps.io, it times out in 5 minutes. So it'll lose. Like if I start a timer, it'll lose real fast.
Okay.
But localhost maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of the idea of working on this, is to look at a specific song, figure out, it shows you how much time total I've spent working on it since I started, how much time I spent in the different phases, before I get to like maintenance, where at this point I would say I'm ready to play it and I just have to keep practicing it so I don't lose it. This one I'm actually trying to bring back right now because I went a little too long without playing it. That's been the most frustrating part, is that you just don't remember this stuff like you want to. And then I have a separate table down here for any time spent on exercises.
Okay. Very thorough.
So I had, when I first started doing this, I had a million different things I wanted to do. You know, I was just like, I want to play that song and that song and that song, and they're all way too hard. But they're pretty, they're inspiring. You hear them and you're like, I want to do this. You know, like I want to stop what I'm doing and pick up a guitar and play it. And so this was sort of like a goals tab, and so I designed it to look kind of like almost like a plaque or a trophy board or something like that, with little like things on it, right? But then you click on the things and it gives you some information about the song. So like, you know, these would be the goal songs that I have. It would have some information about the song itself and any particular arrangements that I found inspiring. And if there was a video behind the arrangement of somebody playing it really well, you know, like I had the ability to put that in there as well. Yeah, this is another really pretty one. I can't play it yet. Yeah, some of these are just so pretty. And, you know, like I knew that I wanted to learn them, and it started off with just like a list of things on a page. I'm like, I can do better than this, you know? And so I wanted to...
Again, goes back to one of your database tables? And
yes, this would be the goals table. Let's see. Arrangement goals, here we go. So this ties together songs and arrangements, and it adds some additional information like, here's why I like this song, you know, here's why I want to learn to play it. Yeah, it's got the composer, the arranger. They're not necessarily the same person. These people are usually pretty old. And
the color of the little thing came from the style or something?
yes, good call. The that actually is going to be part of the song table, is the song type, or sorry, the style. So there is a style table that has all the styles. It's just a lookup. And then on the songs table, you can reference the different style as long as it's not an exercise. And so yes, the styles are colored. So this is just, actually it might be, I might have cheated on this, and instead of actually trying to do some fancy CSS that fades out, I think I might have just created little images that I, you know, hacked the other part of it onto. Yeah, so. Cool. The thing about this page that was kind of neat was I was working with like, okay, I might want to look at this on a desktop, I might want to look at it on mobile. This will not work on like a phone because it just breaks the view. And so there was a part in here where I wanted to make a decision for this particular tab that for most of them, they can just stack the elements vertically when you look at it on a phone. This one, not so easily. So I decided that for a phone, rather than use this like pop it out to the side to show all the detail, I wanted to make an accordion where like you click on it and it expands up and below. So this has something in here where if I change the layout to mobile, you'll see that the entire view switches to something that is now an accordion. And this was not actually very straightforward to do in Shiny itself. I had to use some extra JavaScript to look at the resolution to test if it's less than something. Then just render it completely differently using this other UI instead. So there's like two UIs in there, depending on which.
So Shiny doesn't really work with media breakpoints very well. Is that what This was an area where like it normally is pretty good. This was because of the way I was trying to show this information. There wasn't really any. You had to get into this to be able to show it that way, because the other view that made no sense to have a sidebar layout on a mobile app. There's just no room. So, but the cool thing about the mobile app that view then is that if you click the sandwich icon, the rosette, the top. This is the rosette from my actual guitar. And so so I took like a picture of it and then just extended the wood out. But if you click down on this view only, you can see the rest of the rosette. So it shows you the rest of the tabs there. Cool. Nice. It's a fun little touch.
Yeah. Thanks. And so then this is the page that shows the arsenal, so to speak. Arsenal of guitars.
Are you going to add skins that you can?
Yeah. So this was actually a gift from my parents 25 years ago. And I played around with music, but I wasn't practicing guitar. I wasn't actually learning. And it's collected a lot of dust over the years. It's got a nice sound, but it's a starter guitar. But here's some information about the guitar. You can see the string health from that algorithm that I put together when I installed them. I'm not really playing this guitar right now. Sorry, sad part of this. My mom passed away earlier this year, and this was her guitar, and so it's now my daily driver. And I just installed the strings on this 2 days ago. So you can see that it's like it's actually going down faster than I think it should, but this is the one that, and I don't know. I personally think it sounds way better than the other one, but
Dave is a video gamer, so we needed a health bar.
Yes.
For his guitar.
Yeah, and it's string health, absolutely, totally.
Did your mom get to see this app and see or something?
She did see this,
That's awesome.
and I did. So I learned to play last year. I started learning last year, but before she passed away, I was able to play some of the songs that.
That's nice.
Yeah, I was able to play them for her. It was really, really wonderful experience to be able to do that, and I got to play it on her guitar too. So that was nice.
So Dave, I maybe missed this because I was dazzled by your dashboard. But what actually drove you to go whole hog into learning guitar a year, 1.1 years ago?
Yeah.
Because this is a lot of investment of your
It
time, not
is.
only in playing but also in the
It
technical
is.
aspects as well.
It's. I don't. Okay. There's actually a couple of things that I think got me there. I used to run a lot, and I was starting to deal with injuries from running, either a leg or like a ankle or a knee, or right now my hamstring, such that I just can't move the way I want to move. And I had these plans where I was just like, man, when I retire, I'm gonna run all the time. And that's maybe not gonna happen. And so I did want to have a couple of different hobbies that I could do, some that were I don't need to do any activity, so of course there's always gaming and coding and stuff like that, but something that kind of keeps other parts of me going too. And so this was something that I was thinking about as someday, when I'm hopefully retired and, able to look at things that are, not necessarily work, then it would be nice to be able to have a hobby like practicing guitar, and it would be nice to be at the point where I'm retired and I can pick up music and be like, I want to play this one, I want to play that one. And I picked a guitar because it's one of the most portable instruments I think you can get. And I do want to travel, I hope. And so being able to travel with my guitar seems like a lot of fun. So that was a big part of why guitar. And also I love the sound. I've always wanted to be part of making it. And so having that is that's worth all the time, I guess, that I spend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sort of a related question. I've read different habit books in the past, and something that they always say is make sure that you don't go too far down the path of tracking, that you are focused on the tracking and the habit ends up being
Oh, I have to track my thing today, so I have to practice to do it.
yeah, and in a way that can sort of deter you, because it makes you not only have to practice, but you also have to do all this extra work. But it seems like for you, you've managed to keep both and not.
Balance.
Yeah, you haven't really let tracking deter you from like the actual practicing?
So there was a couple of things I did early on to try to make it so that the act of tracking was relatively effortless. One of the things that I did was when you hit new and I click on arrangement, it's going to show me at the top the arrangements that I've most recently played. So it's always going to sort them by most recently played. And then I think it just, and there's a couple of different places in here where, like, depending on how I do it, it makes it so that when I click on this, I'm going to click one of these things at the top. Yeah.
How long did it take you to learn the Tristram Town theme song? I love that. I just love that.
I picked up I didn't learn the whole thing. I just learned the good part.
That's not right.
It actually, surprisingly, it's not that hard.
Really?
Yeah, it's really not that bad. I think I worked on it over a weekend and like had it almost to tempo, and then I was on to other things, and I've forgotten it now. But
Let's
yeah,
check the
there's
data.
what's that?
Let's check the data on that.
Check the data. Oh, you know what? Let's do that. Let me put my foot in my mouth. All right, Tristram Town. There you go.
What, 2.5 hours?
Time total. Well, I could look at career goals for that, and then
I was looking at the color of the dogs.
Tristram Town is. I don't even see it. Where is it? Oh, they're right here. 2.6. Yeah. Anyway. So this last part was sort of it was just an about area where I kind of wanted to blog about, the things I did to try to go through this, the same things I've talked about. So I broke it down into sections with, like going through requirements, trying to figure out what I wanted to, and this is also how I would approach a project at work, figuring out like what technology to use, and how I'd want to like hook up the database to the app, what the data engineering part of it looks like, what the table design looks like. There's definitely some challenges with Shiny that have to do with the reactivity behind the app, and there's things that you can do that really make it frustrating when you haven't quite figured out what's going on, where it'll look like you've got a chart that just you click a button and it renders 3 times. You're like, why does it keep doing that? And there's a lot of different reasons why that kind of thing happens, but I got into the practice of starting to build these things, which were like, try it that way. Okay. They're like, it's a way for me to sort of map out the different inputs, the functions that are rendering thing, what's calling what becomes dependent on something else. And then like what does these like setting of reactive values, which causes these other chain reactions to happen. So it's you're not supposed to have to go through this, but I wasn't able to build this without going through it. So oftentimes when I ran into problems, it was building something like this that would be like, oh my gosh, that's the problem. It's this cycle here where it sets this value that reads from the value that sets the value again, that reads from the value, and just keeps going and going and going.
Not getting meta, what's your diagram tool for making the
PowerPoint.
It all comes out of PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint.
Right.
Oh, there's my string health formula.
Oh, man. Awesome.
Anyway, and then the couple of links for the tech stack for the different things. So it's Python, Shiny for Python, Plotly, Superbase, and then Shiny Apps IO is where it's hosted. All of this stuff is on GitHub. So let's see, that's my GitHub home. Here, this is a link to the repository, and I can make sure that Ricky has got it sent out to you guys if you're interested in playing around with it. But there is the ability to clone the database, and I have it written in the code where if it detects that it doesn't have the like environment files and this like the .envs that it needs to access the secret keys to get into the database, it'll load up a local SQLite database that's in the repository. And so I refreshed it last night. So it's got all the data you're seeing right now. And I think that's kind of the end of it all. There's a couple of different, like we do whatever you want, questions, we can talk about how to set it up to run with a local database. We can talk about the basics of a Shiny app. We could do deeper dive into this actual code, or whatever you guys like, or we can stop.
Beautiful.
Could you walk through just a little bit of Shiny code, like in the repo?
Sure.
Like anything in particular? Just do that.
I think, so this is a little bit of a bear to be the first app to look at, but I do have in the Shiny repository, I do have in my repository, so as I was going through this and running into problems, I started creating like if I posted something on Stack Exchange or posted something to like the Shiny Discord, I'm like, how do I do this or whatever. Once I got those things figured out, I started posting like reproducible examples. So these are small programs that do a certain thing. And so, let's see, here's a real simple one.
People like me, thank you for that.
Of course. I don't know that anybody's looking at it, but I do. Because I still run into these same things. Like, it's just impossible to remember this stuff. There's too many things.
Usually, if you run into a problem, what do? You go out into the internet to find an example, and if you build your product and you have different examples of different things that you try, then that will be the first place to look.
Yeah.
He's the guy building all those examples that you're looking at.
I know that.
Just go find someone like you.
Oh, I'm always happy to talk about this stuff if you guys have questions. But yeah, so let's see. And here's one for getting the browser resolution. So you know what? Maybe what I'll do is I'm just going to run to their like Hello World app. And walk you through what it does. It's very quick.
I wonder if they use cookies.
Okay, all right, so they start you with the basic app. That's nice. So Shiny for Python has this thing called the Shiny Playground's Shiny Live. So it's a web interface where you can type in code here, and then you can see it rendered immediately to the right. There's two flavors of Shiny. I don't actually know this one. There's Shiny Express, which is like shorthand. It's great for getting things done quickly. Not as great if you want to customize a lot of stuff. So you're all familiar with that. The other one is Core. And so most of my stuff I'll use Core with. And these all still want to use Express, but it's okay. So the idea here is, actually, no, I'm not going to be able to help with that. That's all of the with context inside Express is, I'm just not used to it yet.
That when, like, the moment a front-end UI framework catches on, they decide to rewrite the
Give you a different API.
Right.
Here's the better way.
So the other reason I never got into Shiny Express was because a lot of people I work with use R, and the only Shiny that's ever existed for R is Core Shiny. So when they rolled out Shiny for Python, it was Core Shiny for Python. Once they put together Express, I kind of was like, why would I want to learn this if I'm going to be working with people that know R, that like we want to be able to speak at least a similar language, even if it's not the same language, the same framework. So that was sort of a decision on that. But also Core is a lot more flexible. So anyway, this is an example of Shiny Core. So you load in the library, and there's a couple of things here that you just have to bring in when you first start it. The elements of the app are a UI function, a server function, and something called like an instance of the app class, which ties the two of them together. So you tie together your UI and your server. So this is a very simple app that will give you a slider bar, so you can see, you were asking about like how do you design the front end, the UI, the like HTML. So this would turn into HTML, but when looking at it, you can see how it might kind of look a little bit like, I could see how that might sort of, you start indenting things, the more you go, the more it starts to get further and further in. But this was just a very simple app of I've got 3 things stacked on top of each other. I've got a title for the app, I've got a slider control, and then I've got some output message. And this message gets an ID of message. And so when you have your server function, anytime you want to have logic run to either, like in this case, show the output of message, it's going to go into the server and look for something that's going to render text. These are like parts of the Shiny like elements that you tie together. You have to give the name of a function inside your server function, so you're defining functions and functions. You have to call it message, the same thing as whatever you have here. And so then you can return some text, and then it displays here. When you have, so for this slider, it has an input, it has an ID also. So this ID for this output text is message. This ID is n. So when you're in the server function, you want to reference the n from the front end. You're going to call it input.n, and then you treat it as a function. When you do that, it takes on a dependency, meaning if you change n on the front end, this automatically runs and then updates message. And so it knows to do that because wherever in your server function you put these references back to the elements on your front end or other reactive elements that may tie into it, it creates this sort of reactive network where it's like, okay, if I change this thing, what other things do I have to like invalidate that I have to then redraw based on that one thing changing? And that's kind of a big thing about Shiny, so that when you make a change, you may not have to redraw the entire page. You only just redraw one little part. And it makes use of caching. So if you change an element, you know, and it's like, oh, I have input n there, but I didn't change input n. It doesn't actually redraw anything. It's like, oh, I have the value, and nothing changed. I don't have to redraw anything. And so then, you know, it'll leave that alone. So it only updates when things change that depend on those values. So this is a basic app. Input, output, and session are Shiny objects that give you access to some of the internals of Shiny. I believe session, if you really dig into the session object, you can find all of the like inputs that are tracked by it. Like through the debugging tool, you can do that. I don't mess with them too much. Input, of course, that is your that's when you say input dot, you're referencing this object to get there. Yeah, so this is a very simple example. There's other types of things. There's render widget, which is like my Plotly chart. There could be render HTML, so you can just have backend stuff that writes HTML that gets sent back that could have whatever you want in it, you know, and so you're auto-generating HTML however you want to generate it. Could be rendered data frame, so then instead of having a plot or text, it's got this own little thing that's saying this is going to be a data grid, I think is what they call it, and like it formats it the same way you saw in the data input application that I had. And there's a bunch of other little controls that it has. If I look at, it's not going to let me get back to core. Anyway, in their gallery and in their reference, you can see all the different like inputs, the different outputs. There's a whole like area on reactivity and how it works, and there's like 4 different ways of it working.
At the end, do you just have a gigantic UI function and then gigantic server function?
If you don't find a way to split your code base up, yes.
That was going to be my question. Can you modularize?
Yes.
So you can like import a UI function to.
At this point, yeah, can we like jump into yours?
Yes. So for this, I'll show you exactly that.
His is just like 400 indents.
All right. So here's my main app. And a Shiny application is app.py. So it's got to be app.py. I actually found out that with Posit you can cheat a little bit and call it something-app. And the VS Code extension still sees it as a Shiny app, which is neat. But yeah, it's got to end with app.py. So this is my main app. I've got a million imports. Some of these imports are other files that I've written. to kind of bring this stuff in here. But here's my UI. So you can see I've got page fluid. Here's where it starts to look a little more like HTML, right? You've got some HTML I put in right here, divs, and a bunch of divs and H6 spans, A tags. So all of these things are part of the high level app, and then I've got a server function. So for these modules, I have an individual file for each session, for each tab. And that tab has what's called a Shiny module, and a Shiny module has a UI for the module and a server function for the module, and then you invoke them on the high-level app. So for this, for module sessions tab, there is a UI function, and it is right there, sessions _ UI. That's the actual UI function, just embeds right into this one, and so like it adds it, like it just brings it right in.
Are you giving an ID there? Is that the argument?
The sessions tab ends up being like a namespace ID for that part, for that tab. So all of the things I could have an ID called number, and it would actually be sessions tab _ number or sessions tab - number when it gets into the DOM, because it's prepended with that stuff. But that's a good point, because the namespace sessions tab is also reflected when you call it in the server. They have to match so that they are able to speak to each other. So the module sessions tab .sessions server, and if I go into module sessions tab, you can see another million imports, and here's the sessions UI. So it uses a lot of function decorators in Shiny, and that's kind of like how a lot of his logic works. And so then I've given it a name for the sessions UI function that goes through, and then there's the server. So the server looks just like the server of a regular app, except I've given it this decorator to say this is a module server. And it's called session server. So again, on the front end app, I've invoked it by saying my Python file .session server, and then up here, my sessions tab .sessions UI. So that's how modules all fit in. You're able to split out namespaces and thereby split your code base up into multiple different files to kind of add some sanity to the mess. Yeah.
So I think I'm understanding more about when you're saying like it's injecting these bootstrap classes in here, how like you wouldn't be able to control it, because I'm not seeing anywhere that you're like specifying class lists, but they're already just like getting added somehow.
So I have one nightmare CSS file that I called styles.css, and most of these are bootstrap overrides.
You load this after the bootstrap CSS and it kind of takes over.
What's that now?
You load this file after the bootstrap CSS and takes over?
This file I ended up building along the way as I'm going through, and I'm like, but I don't want that, you know? I want it to be over here, or I don't want that, you know, extra padding on the right. And like, so it would be going through the dev tools, finding the element, looking for its tag, and then getting that here and overriding it.
So like when in your app that I saw, like you had like UI.h3 or something,
Mm-hmm.
is it like adding in a special bootstrap h3 class?
Yes.
Oh, that's so annoying.
So for that part,
It's convenient, David.
I get it.
reference core. Here's the UI. Oh no, that's custom UI. UI inputs, those are, now where the heck did I find it? It might be that the base tags like H, the H's, the divs, spans, A, those tags are like it's part of something called HTML tools, which is a library that I think they brought over from R. and made it so that like anything you can do in any of those tags you have in HTML, they don't even list them here, but you can do UI dot and then the tag, and there's a function for it that they've written that has an argument list. And you can use that to embed a whole bunch of other stuff. But like they'll come with like any class overrides or other styles you want to add in, things like that.
How did you, so do you have access to a database connection?
Yes.
Like you got SQL Alchemy, you said, is that like, did you leave it as a global or is it somehow injected? And
So that is, let's see, I'll go into the database entry app, the database class. There is actually a class diagram in here, and let's see, where did I put it? It's docs. Yes, let's go in here. This control scroll thing is just not working for me. But this is like a UML based class diagram that shows like composition and other things. But well, that was the schema. There's a number of different classes that kind of talk to each other here. And most of these are registered as tables, and these tables are all part of this kind of like input table. The database stuff, I believe, yes, it happens up here. So you've got database model, which goes through some of the ORM, object relational mapping. I'm sorry, not model, it's mapping, to define what the tables look like in the database. And then this class is what actually does the Postgres work. So that's inside of database. And yeah, you can see like here I'm generating a connect string. The information for this, I think it actually comes from, I've got an env file, but I forget exactly where I load it. I think it might be in the main at the beginning of the server function. It's in here somewhere.
okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is. So it ends up pulling some of this information in. It gets it from an env file that's local, that's not part of the repository. If you clone the repository and you don't have the file, it will load a SQLite database that is in the repository that you can get.
First of all, what an amazing project.
Thanks.
You're very crafty.
Thank you.
So my question is, I tell you you're very experienced in this type of work. So if you were to do a different project all over again from scratch, based off your experience, what would you do differently at the start or plan differently at the beginning that would help you save time later on?
Try to figure out as best, I mean, this is what we all try to do, but try to figure out as best as you can from your client or your customer what areas they're going to need flexibility in. So you can try to design your code base around that without getting too caught up in like dry programming, where it's like, I'm going to abstract everything, because that's a nightmare in itself. But yeah, trying to find that balance, asking the questions to get a sense of what areas you think there's going to be some flexibility needed, so that you can perhaps focus some abstraction there, so that then if you need to add things, you can just kind of plop it in. An example would be like, hey, I want to start loading files, into my app. And you're like, okay, what types of files? Well, I want to get like email attachments and maybe PDFs. Okay, those are very different parsing mechanisms. So you might, at that point, you might be like, okay, that probably instead of having one giant parser that's able to like make a decision tree to say, oh, I'm going to go this direction and do these things, or this direction, do these things, build like an abstract class for parsing that has some common things, and then some like concrete classes that will inherit from them that can then say like, okay, my PDF parser just needs Tesseract and PyMe PDF, and my message parser needs extract message, or my data frame parser needs pandas, or whatever that may be. So that way you can kind of keep that stuff separate. But then when they have new things, they're like, oh, I want to do like STL files from my 3D printer. Then you have a different class that you can say, well, I know I need a parse function that's part of my abstract class, and so stuff like that. Trying to just try to figure out where the person's going to need the flexibility, and sometimes you just can't. You just have to work with what you get. Yes.
Who was your favorite person to work with at the FDA?
Next question.
The HR person, right?
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Actually, I also like classical guitar music.
Wonderful.
And I started like you did, going through the people who are hardcore following the transcripts from the masters, and then finding authors like Dominic Miller, the guitarist for Sting,
Mm.
and he has a wonderful collection solo where he just takes Clear the Moon
Mm.
and he adds some other orchestration in the background, etc. But there are more than 40 manufacturers of classical guitar strings around the world. Now, looking at what you have here, I'm not trying to derail your retirement, but it's almost like a consumer report opportunity to say, I have this that, eventually you can just add either the timestamp by just clicking with your foot, and also add the voice, the sound that starts recording from the moment you start, whether it's for all those reasons that you said. When you're a beginner, you stumble, and this is what happened, and all that permutation until you reach mastery, whatever that is.
Mhm.
And then all the wear and tear and all that. I think that kind of information, I don't know if they have that, or they just simply play it and watch somebody just insert it wrong and just break it, versus someone who just documented how it's done right and goes step by step, from the user standpoint, not just from the manufacturing, having something mechanical that is going to just strum without stopping until it breaks.
That's an interesting point. I don't actually track past string sets to be like, let me have a record of like all of it. It's just whatever's the current one, but it's not really hard to add another table. Scope
Just
creep.
one more table.
Yeah, just one more table. Scope creep is never an issue when it's your own project.
Is there another question out there? Yeah.
I was gonna say, the person the 10,000 hours thing is Malcolm Gladwell.
Ah, okay, thank you. Yeah, that I unfortunately the name didn't stick with me, but the concept certainly did. Like, I think about 10,000 hours with everything now, and it's such an enormous figure.
He's got a number of really good books, Tipping Point, and some other.
Yeah.
They're all really good books to read, or YouTubing or whatever.
Nice. Any other questions?
Any last questions?
So I'm going to say this because it hasn't been said this evening, and I'm amazed about this. Do not fret about your practice.
Yes.
You got it down.
I love it. When we were first talking at the beginning of the night, I was like, man, I really wish I could come up with like a good, appropriate way to say I wouldn't fret about it. And thank you for not letting that die. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great presentation. And,
Yeah.
I want to hear more about your thoughts offline about phrasing,
Ah.
because for me, that's where the humanity of music really comes out.
Yeah. It's for me, it's something that I think it's easier for me to imagine the concept of phrasing when I'm watching somebody else play it. But when I first start trying to play it myself, I'm like, I don't know what. Somebody tell me just what to do. And
Your approach to it, your didactic approach, your analytical mindset, I think could really help
hopefully, thank you.
extract some of those elements that really give music its sparkle. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Dave, thank you very much.